The gig wasn't anything special. Thursday night at Riley's, the same bar I'd been playing for 3 years. Decent tips, free drinks, and a crowd that mostly ignored me while I worked through my set list. Not glamorous, but it paid some bills. Outside, the parking lot was half empty. My buddy Marcus was leaning against his car, smoking a cigarette and scrolling through his phone. He looked up when I pushed through the door.
Hey, you heading out?
Yeah, I'm beat. Long night,
I think I got us something lined up for next week.
he said, grinning.
Private party, good money. I'll text you the details tomorrow.
Sounds good, man. I'll keep my schedule open. Marcus waved as I started across the parking lot toward the crosswalk.
Good luck getting home safe.
I lifted a hand in acknowledgement and stepped into the crosswalk, guitar case bouncing slightly against my back with each step. Headlights swung around the corner too fast. I turned my head and saw the car pulling out of the bar's parking lot, and the driver was not even looking at the road. There was no time to move, no time to shout. The vehicle hit me square in the chest, and I felt the impact like a hammer blow before the world flipped sideways. Then, nothing. When awareness came back, I was standing in a white void, not floating, standing. My feet were on something solid, even though there was nothing visible beneath me. The space stretched endlessly in every direction, blank and featureless. I looked down at myself. I was whole, uninjured, still wearing the same jeans and shirt I'd had on at the bar. "What the hell?" I muttered. Confetti exploded around me. Actual confetti, bright and colorful, drifting down from nowhere like I'd just won a game show. I stared at the falling pieces of paper, completely baffled.
Congratulations!
A woman's voice rang out, cheerful and bright. I turned toward the sound and found a woman standing a few feet away. She wore flowing white robes that seemed to shimmer slightly, and her face had the kind of serene beauty that didn't belong to anyone human. She smiled at me like we were old friends. I said intelligently, "What?"
You're the 1 billionth person to die on Earth,
she said, still beaming.
which makes you the lucky soul selected for transfer. Congratulations!
I looked at the confetti still drifting around me, then back at her. Really? Confetti? Her smile faltered slightly.
I was told people from Earth enjoy confetti for celebrations.
Yeah, for birthdays and weddings, not for dying.
Oh,
She looked genuinely concerned.
was it inappropriate?
I laughed despite myself, a short bark of disbelief. I mean, it's definitely weird. But I guess if I had to die, at least I get confetti for it. She brightened again.
I'm Lumina. Welcome to the Soul Exchange Program.
Soul Exchange Program, I repeated slowly. Okay, sure, why not? Lumina gestured around the white void like she was showing off a vacation resort.
There are many worlds beyond Earth. We select one soul out of every billion deaths to transfer to another world, keeping the spirit pool from becoming stagnant. You're that 1 in a billion selection.
So what happens now? I asked.
I send you to a new world for a fresh start. A fun fantasy world, actually, with magic and adventure and all the things people from your Earth enjoy reading about.
I felt a flicker of interest, despite the surreal situation. Like the books? Dungeons, dragons, that kind of thing?
Exactly like that.
Lumina said, looking pleased.
The world has an RPG-style class system. You'll unlock abilities, level up, grow stronger. It's quite exciting.
And what's the catch?
You get a second chance in a new world.
She tilted her head.
And as part of the transfer, I can grant you one special boon, an ability or item to help you in your new life. Most people ask for legendary weapons or powerful magic.
I thought about it for a moment, then asked, "Does this new world have guitars?" Lumina blinked.
Guitars?
Yeah, you know. 6 strings, wooden body, plays music,
The world has stringed instruments,
she said slowly.
lutes, lyres, harps. But guitars specifically? No. The world developed differently, so their musical traditions took different paths.
Then I want to bring mine. She stared at me.
You want to use your special boon on a musical instrument?
Yeah,
Not a sword that never dulls? Not a ring of power? Not enhanced magical abilities?
I appreciate the offers, but I'd really like to have my guitar if possible. Lumina looked genuinely shocked.
May I ask why?
My best friend and I made this together. Took us months. It's a custom acoustic with metal strings, a sound jack for an amp, and a little preamp built into the sound hole with 2 adjustment wheels for volume and tone. It's beautiful, and it's the only thing I have that really matters to me. Her expression softened.
I see.
I spent my whole life trying to make it as a musician, I continued. Never really succeeded, never got famous, never made the big time. But I never stopped loving it. I don't want to live another life without being able to play music. And if this world doesn't have guitars, then I need to bring one. Lumina was quiet for a moment, then smiled.
If I give you the guitar, I cannot give you anything else. Those are the rules.
I understand.
You could ask for a legendary weapon that would make you nearly invincible.
I don't want to be invincible. I want to play music, she laughed, a sound like bells chiming.
All right, then. I'll bring your guitar, but I'm going to make sure it serves you well.
She gestured with one hand, and the guitar case materialized in the air between us, floating gently. I recognized it immediately, the worn leather case that had traveled with me to hundreds of gigs.
There it is,
She said with a smile.
Now let me make sure it serves you well.
She reached out and touched the guitar case. It glowed briefly with a soft, golden light,
The wood and strings are now artifact grade.
Lumina explained.
The guitar is effectively indestructible. You could smash it against a stone wall and it wouldn't even scratch. The strings will never snap, never go out of tune. It will always be perfect.
She paused, then added,
And since this world doesn't have the electrical amplifiers your guitar was designed for, I've enchanted the preamp to use magic instead. The volume and tone controls will work exactly as they did on Earth, just powered by mana rather than electricity.
That's amazing, I said, staring at the case.
And one more thing.
She added,
If you follow the Bard class in your new world, using this guitar will double the effect of your bardic abilities. Consider it a bonus for choosing something so wonderfully unusual.
Bard class? Like magic music?
Exactly. You'll see when you arrive.
She gestured, and the white void began to shimmer.
Now, let's talk about your arrival. You're about 40 years old now, correct?
Around that, yeah.
Most people hate starting over as a baby. All the crying and diapers and learning to walk again.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
So let's skip that part. How does 18 sound? Young enough to have a full life ahead of you, old enough to handle yourself.
Yeah, 18 would be great.
Perfect. I'll drop you near a town so you're not stranded in the wilderness. You'll arrive at the edge of a forest with civilization visible nearby. Easy start, with no immediate danger.
The world began to dissolve around me, colors bleeding into the white void like watercolors mixing on a canvas.
Good luck, Logan.
Lumina said, her voice fading.
I think you're going to do wonderfully.
The white space collapsed into light, and then everything went dark. I woke up lying on my back in soft grass. The sky above me was blue and clear, with clouds drifting lazily overhead. Birds were singing somewhere nearby, and I could hear the rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze. I sat up slowly, taking stock. My body felt different, lighter, more energetic, like I'd shed decades of wear and tear. I looked down at my hands and found them smooth and young. The guitar case was lying in the grass beside me. I picked it up and opened it carefully, relief flooding through me when I saw the instrument inside, exactly as I remembered it. I stood up and looked around. I was at the edge of a forest, just like Lumina had promised. Trees stretched behind me, dense and green, while ahead the land sloped gently downward toward a town in the distance. The town was maybe a mile away, built with wooden buildings and stone walls. Smoke rose from chimneys, and I could see tiny figures moving through the streets even from this distance. I stood there for a moment, looking down at the guitar case in my hand, then back at the town. I could head down there now, but the idea of walking into a strange place surrounded by people I didn't know made me want to wait a bit. I wanted to play for myself first, just for a few minutes, without an audience. I found a nice, shady spot under a tree overlooking the town. The grass was soft, and there was a fallen log nearby that made a decent seat. I set the guitar case down carefully and opened it. The guitar looked perfect. The wood gleamed in the afternoon sunlight, and when I ran my fingers across the strings, they were perfectly in tune. I pulled out my pick from the small pocket in the case and settled the guitar across my lap. Playing always helped me think. I started with a simple melody, something calm and relaxing, just a gentle finger-picking pattern, no lyrics, nothing complicated. The kind of music you'd play for yourself when you needed to unwind. The sound was beautiful, clear and resonant, somehow richer than I remembered. Maybe it was the enchantment Lumina had placed on it. Or maybe it was just the quiet forest making everything sound better. A notification appeared in front of me, floating in the air like a video game menu. You've unlocked the Bard class. Would you like to choose Bard as your class? I stopped playing and stared at the message. There was a simple yes or no option hovering beneath the text. Lumina had mentioned the class system, and she'd said the guitar would double Bard effects if I followed that path. This seemed like exactly what she'd been talking about. I thought about it for maybe 5 seconds before selecting yes. I wasn't a fighter. I'd never been in a real fight in my life, and I had no interest in starting now. The idea of swinging a sword or getting hit with one made me deeply uncomfortable. But playing music to make a living? That I could do. That I'd been doing for years. If this world would let me survive by playing guitar instead of risking my life in combat, I was absolutely taking that option. The notification disappeared, replaced by a new one showing my basic information. My strength and endurance were both at 11, but my agility was at 13, and my mind stat was at 12. I guessed agility was my primary stat as a bard. I had 110 health points, 240 mana points, and a short list of abilities. Perfect tuning was listed first, which seemed useless since I could already tune by ear. The other ability was called emotional control, and the description said it let me influence emotions through music. I dismissed the notifications and looked down at the guitar. Time to test this. I started playing again, the same calm melody as before, but this time I focused on the emotional control ability. I wanted to feel relaxed, content, at peace with the situation I'd found myself in. Something shifted. I felt mana flowing out of me, down through my fingers and into the guitar. It wasn't unpleasant, just a gentle pull, like breathing out slowly. The music took on a different quality. It felt warmer somehow, more complete. And as I played, a wave of calm washed over me. My shoulders relaxed. The tension I'd been carrying since waking up in this new world eased, and I felt genuinely better. I kept playing, losing myself in the melody for a while. The mana drain was noticeable, but not severe. I could feel the pool inside me slowly depleting, and I estimated I had maybe another 10 minutes before I'd run dry. A rustling sound made me glance up. A grizzly bear was lying in the grass about 20 feet away, watching me. I froze mid-chord, my fingers going still on the strings. The bear let out a low growl. Right. Stopping the music made it unhappy. I very carefully resumed playing, keeping my movements smooth and my breathing steady. The bear's growl faded. It lowered its massive head onto its paws and continued watching me with what looked like contentment. I had no idea what to do. Running seemed like a terrible idea. Bears were fast, and this one was enormous. Fighting was completely out of the question, so I just kept playing, hoping the music would keep it calm long enough for me to figure something out. The bear started crawling toward me. Slowly, inch by inch, it pulled itself across the grass. Its eyes never left me, and its expression remained relaxed, almost sleepy. It looked less like a predator stalking prey and more like a dog trying to get closer to its owner. When it was about 5 feet away, another notification appeared. Congratulations, you've tamed Grizzly Bear. I blinked at the message, still playing on autopilot. The notification expanded, showing a new section in my status window labeled Tamed Animals, 1/1. Below that was listed Grizzly Bear, with a name field showing only question marks. I was supposed to name it. The bear settled down completely, lying on its side with its head resting on the ground, watching me with half-closed eyes. It looked peaceful and content, like it had found exactly where it wanted to be. I stopped playing carefully, testing whether the bear would react. It didn't growl this time, just blinked slowly and made a soft huffing sound. "All right," I said quietly. "I need to name you, apparently." The bear's ear twitched. I thought about bear names. The problem was, every bear name I could think of reminded me of some famous character. Pooh was out for obvious reasons. Yogi, Baloo, Paddington, all of them belonged to that stupid mouse company or some other corporation that would definitely sue me if this ever got written into a book or a movie later. "I'm terrible at naming things," I admitted to the bear. "How about Kevin?" The bear lifted its head and tilted it to the side, giving me a look that could only be described as annoyed. "Yeah, I know. It's not a great bear name," I said. "But it's the first thing that came to mind," and another notification appeared. Tamed Animal, Kevin, Grizzly Bear. "Oh no," I muttered. "I think it autofilled. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lock that in." Kevin lowered his head and shook it slowly, the movement very deliberate and very human-like in its expression of resignation. "I really am sorry," I said. "If I figure out how to change it, I will. But for now, I guess you're Kevin." Kevin huffed and closed his eyes, apparently accepting his fate. I pulled up Kevin's information in my status window, curious about what I'd actually tamed. His stats appeared, and I had to read them twice to make sure I wasn't seeing things wrong. His strength was 40, and endurance and agility were both at 20. His mind was way down at 2, however. I looked at Kevin, then back at my own stats. My strength was 11. Kevin's was 40. He was nearly 4 times stronger than me, and I was supposed to be the one in charge here. "You're terrifying, you know that?" I said to him. Kevin opened one eye and looked at me with what I could only describe as smugness. The mind stat being 2 made sense, I supposed. He was a bear, not a scholar. But the rest of his stats were absolutely monstrous for a level 1 companion. I'd lucked into taming something that could probably rip most low-level monsters apart without breaking a sweat. I dismissed the window and looked down at Kevin. "All right, partner. I think we're going to do just fine together." I checked my mana pool and winced. Playing with the emotional influence ability had drained me more than I'd realized. I was sitting at maybe a quarter capacity, and while it was regenerating slowly, I needed to find shelter and figure out how this world worked before I ran into any more surprises. "Come on, Kevin," I said, standing up and slinging the guitar case over my shoulder. "Let's go see what that town has to offer." Kevin rose to his feet with surprising grace for something so massive. He fell into step beside me as I started down the hill toward the town. The walk took about 20 minutes. As we got closer, I could see the town more clearly. It was called Brookhaven, according to a wooden sign posted near the road. The walls were solid stone, maybe 15 feet high, with guards posted at an open gate. The guards noticed us immediately. 2 of them stepped forward, hands moving toward their weapons as they spotted Kevin. "Hold there," one of them called out. "That's a grizzly bear." "He's with me," I said, stopping a respectful distance away. "He's my animal companion." The guards relaxed visibly. One of them, an older man with a graying beard, nodded.
"Ah, that explains it. Animal companions aren't unusual. We just need to make sure he's not wild."
"He's tame," I confirmed. "He won't cause any trouble." The other guard, younger with sharp eyes, looked me over.
"You an adventurer?"
"Not yet. I'm a level 1 bard." Both guards stared at me.
"You're a bard?"
The older one said slowly. "Yeah, I sure am,"
"Bards are rare,"
the younger guard said.
"Most people think they're too weak to survive. High chance of getting killed if you try adventuring."
Good thing I'm planning to make a living playing music then, I said. The older guard chuckled.
Smart choice. Well, good luck to you. Welcome to Brookhaven.
They stepped aside and waved me through. Kevin and I walked past them into the town. The streets were busy with late afternoon activity. Merchants were closing up their stalls. People were heading home or to taverns for dinner, and the smell of cooking food filled the air. It was surprisingly normal, almost comforting in how familiar it felt, despite being a completely different world. I spotted a tavern about halfway down the main street. It had a wooden sign hanging over the door with a painted mug on it. I could hear laughter and conversation drifting out through the open windows. That was exactly what I needed. I pushed through the door and stepped inside. The tavern was moderately sized, with maybe a dozen tables scattered around a central room. Only a few were occupied at this hour. A bar ran along one wall, and there was a small stage area in the back corner that looked like it was used for performances. A waitress looked up as I entered. She was maybe 17 or 18, with brown hair tied back in a practical ponytail and sharp green eyes. She wore a fitted white blouse with the sleeves rolled up and a dark skirt that showed off her legs, with a simple apron tied at her waist. She smiled at me, then her eyes widened as Kevin lumbered in behind me.
Oh,
She said,
that's a very large bear.
"He's friendly," I said quickly, "but I understand if you'd rather he wait outside." She studied Kevin for a moment, then looked at me.
Is he yours?
"Yes, he's my animal companion."
Can you ask him to sit outside? He's a bit big for the space in here.
I turned to Kevin. "Hey, buddy, can you sit outside for a bit? I'll come get you in a few minutes." Kevin looked at me, then at the door, then huffed and turned around. He walked back outside with the air of someone who was used to being excluded from buildings. The waitress watched him go, looking impressed.
He listens well.
"He's a good bear," I said. "My name's Logan. I'm a musician and a bard. I was hoping I could play here in the evenings as entertainment." Her expression brightened.
Really? That would be wonderful. I love music, and it makes the work go so much faster when there's something nice to listen to.
"I'm glad to hear it. What's the arrangement usually? Do you pay entertainers?"
I'm Alina, by the way.
She gestured toward the bar.
The owner is Tobin. He's in the back right now, but I can tell you what we'd offer. The tavern doesn't make a huge profit, so the best we can do is 3 silver per night. You'd also keep any tips people give you.
3 silver per night. I had no idea if that was good or terrible, but it was income,
How about we try it for a few nights and see how it goes?
Alina suggested.
If it helps business, we'd love for you to stay. If it doesn't work out, no hard feelings.
"That sounds fair," I said. I was confident people would like the music. They usually did, even back on Earth when I was playing for indifferent bar crowds. I normally play with a band, but it'll just be me this time. "One more thing," I added. "Would it be all right if Kevin stayed inside near me while I play? I worry about leaving him outside unsupervised." Alina hesitated, then nodded.
If he stays in the back corner with you and doesn't bother anyone, that should be fine. He might actually scare off customers sitting out there, come to think of it.
"Thank you. He'll behave." I went outside and collected Kevin, leading him back inside to the corner where the small stage area was set up. There was a chair and enough space for Kevin to lie down comfortably without blocking any tables. I opened the guitar case and pulled out the instrument, settling into the chair and adjusting the strap. Kevin lay down beside me, resting his massive head on his paws. It was still early afternoon, so the crowd was light. I started with something simple and upbeat, just to get a feel for the room. The sound carried well, and the few patrons who were there looked up with interest. As evening fell, more people filtered in. The tavern filled up with workers finishing their day, travelers looking for food and rest, and locals meeting friends for drinks. I kept playing, cycling through different songs and styles. I experimented with the bardic magic as I played. I could feel the mana flowing through me and into the music, and I tried channeling it toward making people feel happy and content. The effect was subtle but noticeable. People relaxed, smiled more easily, laughed louder at jokes. The atmosphere in the tavern became warmer. The mana drain was manageable if I paced myself. About 20 minutes of continuous magical playing would empty my pool completely, and it took another 20 minutes to fully regenerate. So I alternated between playing with magic and playing normally, keeping my mana balanced. People started tossing coins into my open guitar case. Copper pieces mostly, with the occasional silver mixed in. I kept playing and noticed something interesting. Small notifications were popping up in my vision every time someone tipped me. 1 XP gained appeared for copper coins, while silver coins gave me 10 XP gained. It wasn't a lot, but I could see it accumulating steadily. This was incredible. I could level up as a bard just by playing music and receiving tips. No fighting required, no risking my life against monsters. Just good music and a receptive audience. About 3 hours in, I decided to try something different. Instead of channeling happiness, I tried channeling generosity. The idea was simple. If people felt more generous, maybe they'd tip more. The effect was immediate. I felt the mana shift, the music taking on a different quality. Patrons started smiling and calling Alina over, praising her service and leaving larger tips for her. I stopped playing with the generosity effect and went back to happiness. That had backfired spectacularly. The magic made people generous, but it didn't direct that generosity specifically toward me. They'd tipped the person they were interacting with most, which was Alina serving them drinks and food. Lesson learned. Bardic magic could have unintended consequences, depending on context. I played until the tavern closed, keeping the atmosphere light and enjoyable. By the end of the night, my guitar case had a decent collection of coins in it. When Alina started cleaning up, I kept playing softly in the background. She wiped down tables and collected empty mugs while I worked through a gentle instrumental piece. After a few minutes, she came over and sat down at a nearby table.
That was really wonderful. I mean it. Your music makes this place feel so much nicer. Warmer, somehow.
Thank you. I'm glad people enjoyed it.
What is that instrument? I've never seen one like it.
It's called a guitar. They're pretty common where I'm from.
Where are you from?
She asked curiously. I'm from far away, I said vaguely. A different country. I've been traveling for a while now. She accepted that without pressing further.
Well, I hope you stay in Brookhaven for a while. We could use more music like this.
I counted my earnings while we talked. Between the 3 silver from the tavern and the tips, I'd made about 4.5 silver total. I'd already eaten a meal earlier in the evening, which Alina had told me was about 2 silver. So, after accounting for that, I had about 2.5 silver profit. Not huge, but it was a start. You used to adventure, right? I asked, remembering something she'd mentioned earlier. Alina nodded.
Yes, I was a ranger. I used a bow primarily, and I did some tracking work. I tried it for about a year.
What made you stop?
I didn't like it.
She said simply.
The constant danger, the fear of getting killed by something in the wilderness. It wasn't worth it. I'd rather work here where it's safe, and I can talk to people without worrying about monsters jumping out of the trees.
That makes sense. It seems like a smart choice. She smiled.
I think so. Though some people think I gave up too easily.
She stood and picked up her cleaning rag.
You should probably find a place to sleep. The inn is just down the street. Tell them I sent you, and they'll give you a fair rate.
Thanks, Alina. I'll see you tomorrow night. Kevin and I headed out into the dark street. The town was quiet now, most people already home and settled for the night. I found the inn Alina had mentioned easily enough, a 2-story building with warm light glowing in the windows. I pushed through the door and found an older woman behind the counter, writing in a ledger. I need a room for the night, I said.
That'll be 2 silver per night,
She said without looking up. I pulled out my coin pouch and counted carefully. 2 silver was most of what I'd earned tonight. I handed over the coins, and she gave me a key. The room was small but clean, with a bed that looked reasonably comfortable and a window overlooking the street. Kevin settled down on the floor beside the bed, taking up most of the available space. I lay down and stared at the ceiling, doing the math in my head. 3 silver from the tavern, maybe 2 silver in tips on a good night, minus 2 silver for the inn, and 2 silver for a meal. That left me with maybe 1 silver profit per day if I was lucky. I wasn't thriving. I was barely surviving. The next morning I bought food from street vendors instead of eating at the tavern. Vegetables and fruit were cheap, just a few copper pieces, and they filled me up well enough. It wasn't glamorous, but it stretched my money further. That night I returned to the tavern. The crowd was slightly larger than the night before, maybe 20% more people. Word was spreading that there was music, and people were coming specifically for it. Alina brought me a meal partway through the evening and set it down beside me.
This one's on the house.
She said with a smile.
Well, mostly. I'm only charging you 1 silver instead of 2.
I appreciate that, I said.
You're bringing in customers. It's the least I can do.
The tips were better too. By the end of the night, I had about 1 silver and 8 copper pieces in mixed coins sitting in my guitar case, plus the 3 silver from Tobin. After paying the 1 silver for my discounted meal, I was still coming out ahead of the previous night. More importantly, I felt something shift inside me as I played the last song of the night. A notification appeared. Level 2 achieved. I stopped playing for a moment and pulled up my status to see what had changed. My stats had increased slightly, and a new ability had unlocked. Perfect pitch. I stared at it for a moment, feeling mildly annoyed. Perfect pitch would help me identify notes accurately, which was useful for a musician, but I didn't really sing. I was an instrumentalist. Still, I supposed it made sense for a bard class. The system probably assumed most bards were vocalists. I dismissed the window and went back to playing. Kevin lifted his head and made a huffing sound. A notification appeared above him too, visible only to me. Companion Kevin has reached level 2. Our levels matched. Whatever system controlled this world kept us in sync. When Alina came over to pay me at the end of the night, I made a request. Can you do me a favor? Put the payment directly into my guitar case instead of handing it to me. She looked confused.
Why would you want me to do that?
I get experience when people tip me, I explained. I'm hoping payment works the same way if it goes into the case like a tip. Understanding dawned on her face.
That's actually clever. Sure, I can do that.
She dropped the 3 silver coins into the guitar case one at a time. 3 small notifications appeared. 10 XP gained for each coin. It worked. Thank you, I said. This helps more than you know. We talked while she cleaned up. I counted my earnings and realized I'd made decent progress tonight, but long-term survival on tavern work alone was going to be difficult. I like playing here, I told her honestly, and I'm glad I can level this way. But I'm worried it's not going to be enough money to actually thrive, you know? Just surviving isn't really living. Alina paused in her cleaning and looked at me thoughtfully.
Have you thought about registering at the Adventurers Guild?
I'm not really the adventuring type,
I don't mean diving into dungeons or fighting dragons,
she said quickly.
but there are easy E-rank quests. Gathering plants, doing small tasks around town, that sort of thing. With Kevin, you'd be safer than most people starting out.
I considered that. What kind of pay are we talking about?
E-rank quests usually pay a couple of gold for completion. It's not huge, but it's steady income. You could do quests during the day and still play here at night.
A couple of gold? That was significantly more than I was making at the tavern.
The guild has a quest board. You pick what you're comfortable with. No one forces you to take dangerous work.
I thought about it while I packed up my guitar. The idea of doing some light adventuring didn't appeal to me, but neither did being perpetually broke. If the quests were truly easy, and Kevin could handle most of the actual danger, maybe it was worth trying. I'll think about it, I said. The next morning, I went to the Adventurers Guild. The building was larger than I expected, 2 stories tall with a wide entrance and the sound of voices coming from inside. I pushed through the door and found a bustling hall filled with adventurers. Some sat at tables drinking and talking. Others stood near a large quest board on the wall, reading posted notices. The whole place had the energy of people preparing for work, comparing equipment, and swapping stories. A counter ran along the far wall with a young woman behind it organizing papers. She had dark hair pulled back in a braid and wore practical clothing that suggested she'd done adventuring herself at some point. I walked up to the counter. "I'd like to register to do some easy quests near town." She looked up and studied me for a moment.
You're a bard, aren't you?
"Yeah. How did you know?"
The instrument case on your back. Most fighters don't carry those.
She held out her hand.
I'm Jessa, guild receptionist. Bards are pretty rare. Most avoid adventuring entirely.
"I'm not looking to do anything dangerous," I said. "Just easy work. I have an animal companion who can handle most of the actual fighting if needed."
That's smart. What's your level?
"I'm level 2. Jessa pulled out a registration form and began filling it in.
All right, Logan the Bard, level 2. I'll get you registered. Just so you know, we have a healer on site if you ever need medical attention. Priestess named Sarah. She works out of the side room and charges 2 silver per healing session.
That's good to know. She finished the paperwork and handed me a small metal card with my name engraved on it.
This is your guild identification. You'll need it to claim quest rewards. The board over there has all the available work. Start with E-rank quests. They're marked with green tags.
I thanked her and walked over to the quest board. Most of the notices were color-coded, with green tags indicating beginner work. I scanned through them until I found something that sounded manageable. Gather healing herbs for local alchemist. 40 plants required. Location marked on attached map. Payment. 2 gold upon completion. 2 gold for picking plants. That was doable. I took the notice off the board and brought it back to Jessa. "I'll take this one." She made a note in her ledger.
Good choice. Those herbs grow in a consistent area about half an hour outside town. It's almost like gardening, honestly. Just watch out for the occasional weak monster in that area.
Understood. Thank you. Kevin and I left the guild and headed out of town, following the map Jessa had provided. The walk took about 30 minutes through light forest. The area marked on the map had clusters of small blue flowers growing in shaded patches. I spent the next hour carefully gathering the herbs, making sure to leave the roots intact so they'd regrow. Kevin lay nearby, watching the forest and occasionally sniffing the air. By the time I had 40 plants bundled up, the sun was starting to lower in the sky. I packed them carefully into a cloth bag and started heading back toward town. We were maybe 10 minutes into the return journey when a goblin jumped out from behind a tree. It was small, maybe 4 feet tall, with greenish skin and a crude wooden club. It snarled and raised its weapon. Kevin moved before I could react. One massive paw came down and crushed the goblin completely. There was a wet crunch, and the creature stopped moving. "Well," I said, staring at the remains. "That was fast." Kevin sniffed at the goblin, then looked up at me with what I could only describe as pride. Something was glinting in the goblin's chest cavity where Kevin's strike had torn it open. I knelt down carefully and pulled out a small crystal, about the size of my thumb. It was smooth and slightly warm, glowing faintly with internal light. A notification appeared. E-rank mana crystal acquired. I pocketed the crystal and we continued back to town. When I reached the guild, Jessa was still at the counter.
That was quick.
She said when I presented the herbs. The location was well marked. I didn't have any problems. She counted the plants, confirmed I had the right amount, and handed me 2 gold coins.
Good work. You're welcome to take another quest anytime.
I pulled out the mana crystal and set it on the counter. "Is this worth anything?" Jessa's eyes lit up.
You found a mana crystal? These are valuable. E-rank crystals sell for about 5 silver each. The guild buys them, or you can sell them at the general market.
5 silver for something that took no effort to collect. If I could get 1 or 2 of these per quest, the income would add up quickly. "I'll sell it to the guild," I said. She counted out 5 silver coins and added them to my payment. Combined with the quest reward, I was walking out with 2 gold and 5 silver. That was more than I'd make in a week at the tavern. That evening I returned to the tavern and played as usual. When Alina came over during a break, I told her about the herb quest and the goblin. Kevin killed it in one hit, I said. He didn't even slow down. Alina laughed.
That's good. You should be careful, though. Even weak monsters can hurt you if they get a lucky hit. That's why healing potions are so important.
How often do people use them?
Constantly. Adventurers use them all the time. Anytime you take damage, a healing potion can save your life. You should buy some and keep them on you, especially if you're going to keep doing quests.
The next day, I visited a potion vendor in the market. The shop had rows of small glass bottles filled with red and blue liquid. "How much for a health potion?" I asked the merchant.
1 gold each.
He said without hesitation. I stared at him. 1 gold.
Standard price. Mana potions are the same.
1 gold per potion. I could afford maybe 1 or 2 at most with my current funds, and that would wipe out most of what I'd earned from the quest. "I'll take 1 healing potion," I said, counting out the gold coin carefully. The merchant handed me a small red vial, and I tucked it safely into my pocket. 1 potion wasn't much, but it was better than nothing if something went wrong on a quest. I left the shop with significantly less money than I'd entered with. Healing potions were expensive. I could afford one as an emergency backup, but buying them regularly would eat through my money faster than I could earn it. I'd have to be very careful not to get injured. Kevin and I headed back toward the tavern. I had enough to pay for the inn tonight and buy food, with a little left over. Progress was being made, but slowly. I needed to keep doing quests, keep playing music, and keep leveling. Eventually, I'd have enough money saved up to feel secure. For now, I just had to keep moving forward. The next day, I took a quest to hunt horned rabbits. They were described as very weak monsters, barely dangerous, but their horns were useful for crafting and alchemy. The quest required 10 kills. It sounded easy enough, especially with Kevin's strength. What I hadn't counted on was how hard it would be to actually find the things. Kevin and I spent nearly the entire afternoon searching the forest. Horned rabbits were apparently good at hiding, and they scattered the moment they sensed danger. I managed to track down and kill 10 of them over the course of several hours, but it was tedious work. Kevin and I worked as a team. I'd spot the rabbits hiding in the undergrowth, and Kevin would chase them down. Bears could run much faster than humans, and he had no trouble catching the rabbits once I pointed them out. Each rabbit dropped a small mana crystal, which made the effort worthwhile financially, but the time investment was frustrating. By the time I finished the quest, I felt another shift inside me. A notification appeared. Level 3 achieved. I pulled up my status while walking back to town. My stats had increased again, and a new ability had unlocked. 1 stat increase minor. I read the description carefully. The ability let me buff a single stat by 10% while I played. With my guitar's double effect, that became 20%. The downside was mana cost. Running the buff would drain my mana in about 10 to 20 minutes depending on how I managed it, and I'd need another 20 minutes to fully recover. I decided to test it immediately. I pulled out my guitar and started playing while walking, focusing on the agility buff. I felt the mana flow through me and into the music, and my movements became noticeably lighter and quicker. It wasn't a huge difference, but I could feel myself moving with more grace. I checked Kevin's stats again while I was at it, just out of curiosity. His strength had increased to 46 at level 3. Mine was sitting at 13. "You're still absurdly overpowered compared to me," I told him. Kevin looked up at me and made a huffing sound that might have been agreement. "But I'm grateful for you," I added. "I'd be in serious trouble without your help." He seemed satisfied with that. When we got back to town, I noticed Kevin had several wounds from the horned rabbit fights. They weren't life-threatening, but they were bleeding and looked painful. The rabbits had sharp horns, and a few had managed to stab him before he killed them. I turned in the quest at the guild, collected my payment, then asked Jessa about the healer. "Kevin needs some attention," I said. "Where's the healing room?" Jessa pointed to a side door.
Sarah's in there. 2 silver for the session.
2 silver was a lot cheaper than a healing potion. I led Kevin to the side room and found a woman in her 30s wearing white robes. She had kind eyes and a calm demeanor that immediately put me at ease.
Your bear needs healing?
Yeah, he got stabbed a few times by horned rabbits. Sarah knelt down and examined Kevin's wounds, running her hands over them with a soft, golden glow emanating from her palms. Within minutes, the cuts had closed and the bleeding stopped.
There you go.
She said, standing up.
He should be fine now.
I paid her the 2 silver and thanked her. Kevin looked significantly happier without the wounds, and I made a mental note that the guild healer was a much more economical option than buying potions. The next day I took another quest, this time targeting goblins. The quest required 5 goblin kills. Jessa mentioned when I took it that goblin numbers were building in the forest, and the guild was trying to keep them under control before they became a real problem. She also warned me that goblins were E rank individually, but could become D rank threats if they grouped up. I'll be careful, I assured her. I had a new strategy this time. Instead of just watching Kevin fight, I wanted to contribute more actively using my buff ability. I strapped my guitar across my shoulder so I could play while moving, keeping the case on my back for storage. Kevin and I headed into the forest, and it didn't take long to find goblins. We encountered a group of 5 of them clustered together near a rocky outcropping. I started playing immediately, focusing on the agility buff. The mana flowed through the guitar, and I felt the effect settle over both Kevin and myself. Kevin's movements became faster and more fluid, and he charged into the goblins like a wrecking ball. The fight was over in less than a minute. Kevin tore through them with brutality, his enhanced agility letting him dodge their crude weapons while landing devastating blows. I stayed back and kept playing, maintaining the buff throughout the fight. When the last goblin fell, I stopped playing and caught my breath. 5 mana crystals glinted among the bodies. I collected them carefully and tucked them into my pouch. "That's the quest done," I said to Kevin. "Let's head back." We started making our way back toward Brookhaven. About 20 minutes into the walk, I heard screaming in the distance. It was humans screaming. People were in trouble. I looked at Kevin. We need to help them. Kevin didn't hesitate. He took off running toward the sound, and I followed as fast as I could. We burst into a clearing and found a group of young adventurers fighting for their lives against a horde of orcs. There were 4 adventurers, a man with a sword and shield holding the front line, a woman with 2 daggers darting between enemies, a male spellcaster throwing fire from the back, and a female healer trying to keep everyone alive. 2 orc bodies were already on the ground, but 10 more were still fighting. The adventurers were completely overwhelmed. The sword and shield warrior was bleeding from multiple wounds, barely holding his position. The rogue was moving well, but couldn't get past the orc's defenses. The spellcaster looked exhausted, and the healer was frantically trying to keep up with the damage. I made a split-second decision. I couldn't fight orcs directly, but I could help. "Kevin, flank them from the side!" I shouted. Kevin charged in from the right, slamming into the nearest orc with the force of a battering ram. The orc went down instantly, its skull crushed. I started playing, channeling the agility buff as hard as I could. The music rang out across the clearing, and I felt the mana surge through the guitar and spread outward to cover everyone in range. The 4 adventurers, Kevin, and even myself all received the buff. Kevin was a ball of fury. He tore into another orc, his enhanced speed and agility making him nearly impossible to counter. Several orcs turned to face this new threat, their attention diverted from the struggling party. The rogue woman suddenly moved with new confidence, her enhanced agility letting her slip past an orc's guard and drive both daggers into its neck. It collapsed, gurgling. The warrior's defense improved dramatically. He dodged attacks that would have hit him before, using the extra speed to reposition and protect the caster and healer behind him. The agility boost wasn't huge, just 20%, but in a desperate fight it was enough to shift momentum. The orcs had been winning through sheer numbers and aggression. Now the adventurers had the edge they needed to survive. The battle turned into a slaughter. Kevin killed 2 more orcs in quick succession. The rogue took down 3 more with precise strikes. The warrior managed to kill one while holding the line. The spellcaster's fire magic finished off the last remaining orc. When it was over, everyone was breathing hard and covered in blood. Kevin was badly wounded, with deep gashes across his side and shoulder where the orcs had focused their attacks on him. The adventurers were also hurt, though less severely than they would have been without my help. The healer woman looked at me with wide eyes.
You saved our lives. Thank you.
"Are you all right?" I asked.
We're alive, thanks to you and your bear,
The warrior said. He lowered his sword and leaned against his shield, exhausted.
I'm Marcus. This is Nyx, Ronan, and Amara.
He pointed to each party member in turn. Nyx was the rogue with the daggers, Ronan was the spellcaster, and Amara was the healer. "I'm Logan," I said, "and this is Kevin." Marcus laughed weakly.
Your bear is named Kevin?
"It's a long story." Amara approached Kevin and examined his wounds.
I can heal him, but I need time for my mana to regenerate. I'm almost completely drained.
"Take your time," I said. "We're not in a rush." While we waited for Amara's mana to recover, we harvested the mana crystals from the dead orcs. There were 12 total, worth significantly more than the goblin crystals I'd collected earlier. "What were you doing out here?" I asked as we worked.
Trying to make a living as adventurers.
Marcus said.
We're a new party, still learning. Obviously, we bit off more than we could chew with these orcs.
They caught us off guard.
Nyx added.
We thought it was just a few of them, but they had reinforcements hiding nearby.
I nodded. I'm mostly a tavern bard, trying to survive financially. I heard your call for help, and came running as fast as I could.
You play in a tavern?
Ronan asked.
And you're out here hunting monsters?
Tavern work doesn't pay enough to live on, I explained. I do easy quests during the day to supplement my income. After about 20 minutes, Amara's mana had recovered enough to work. She moved through the group, healing everyone's wounds with golden light from her hands. When she reached Kevin, she spent extra time on his deeper injuries.
He took a lot of damage protecting us,
she said.
He's incredibly brave.
Kevin made a pleased huffing sound at the praise. When everyone was healed, Marcus looked at me seriously.
We owe you. If you ever need help, find us. We're usually at the guild hall.
I appreciate that, I said. We all traveled back to Brookhaven together. The walk gave everyone time to recover mentally from the close call. When we reached the guild, I turned in my completed goblin quest, while the party turned in their orc-related quest. Marcus approached me while I was collecting my payment from Jessa.
We're selling the mana crystals from the orcs. You deserve a share. Without you and Kevin, we'd be dead.
You don't have to do that, I said.
We want to.
Amara insisted.
It's only fair.
They sold the 12 orc crystals and split the money 5 ways, giving me 1/5 of the total. It was a significant amount, more than I'd expected to make from helping them. Thank you, I said, pocketing the coins. This will really help.
Are you doing anything tomorrow?
Marcus asked.
We were thinking about taking another quest. Having you with us made everything so much easier. Your music buffs are incredible in a fight.
I thought about it. Going out with a party was definitely safer than hunting alone. Party quests tended to pay better too, and the orc fight had shown me my buffs had real value even if I couldn't fight directly. Yeah, I can join you, I said. What time?
Meet us here in the morning.
Nyx said.
We'll find something good on the quest board.
That evening I returned to the tavern and played as usual. During cleanup, Alina came over and I told her about the orc fight and helping the party.
That sounds exciting
She said, wiping down tables.
and dangerous.
It was both, I admitted. But it felt good to help people, and the money was better than solo work. Alina smiled, though there was something wistful in her expression.
I'm glad you're finding success with adventuring. I wish I could have kept doing it myself, but the fear was too much for me. Every time I went out, all I could think about was dying.
There's nothing wrong with choosing safety, I said. You made the right choice for you.
Maybe, but sometimes I wonder if I gave up too easily.
She shook her head.
Anyway, be careful out there.
Don't let success make you overconfident.
I won't, I promised. The next morning I went shopping before meeting the party. I'd learned from the orc fight that running out of mana at a critical moment could be deadly. I bought several mana potions and a couple of extra healing potions, spending a good chunk of my recent earnings on supplies. Better to have them and not need them than the other way around. I met the party at the guild hall. They were already looking at the quest board when I arrived.
We found a good one.
Marcus said, pointing to a notice.
Goblin encampment in some old ruins. About 20 goblins estimated. After surviving that orc fight, this should be easy money.
I looked at the quest details. The ruins were a bit farther out than our previous trips, but the pay was decent, and 20 goblins split between 6 of us didn't seem too threatening. Sounds good to me, I said. I've fought goblins before. They're not that tough. We headed out, following the map toward the ruins. The walk took about an hour through increasingly dense forest. Eventually, the trees opened up, and we saw the remains of an ancient city. Stone structures jutted from the ground, half collapsed and overgrown with vines and moss. Broken walls created a maze of sightlines and hiding spots. The whole place had an eerie, abandoned feeling.
There,
Ronan whispered, pointing. I saw a handful of goblins moving between the ruins, maybe 4 or 5 of them visible from our position. I'll stay back here with Amara, I said, positioning myself behind some rubble where I had cover. I'll start the buffs when you engage. Marcus, Nyx, and Ronan moved forward with Kevin. I pulled out my guitar and started playing softly, channeling mana into the agility buff. The music spread outward, covering the entire party. The front line charged. Kevin hit the first goblin like a freight train, killing it instantly. Marcus blocked an attack and countered. Nyx darted in and finished another with her daggers. Then the goblins started screaming. More goblins poured out from the ruins. Not 10, not 20. They came from every direction, scrambling over broken walls and emerging from hidden holes in the ground.
there's too many!
Ronan shouted, throwing a fireball into a cluster of them.
Fall back!
Marcus yelled.
Find a choke point.
We ran. The party scrambled through the ruins, looking for defensible ground while goblins swarmed behind us. I kept playing despite my terror, forcing myself to maintain the buff even as my hands shook.
There.
Nyx pointed to a dead-end area where walls formed a narrow passage.
Back to the wall.
We piled into the defensive position. The walls on either side and behind us meant the goblins could only come at us from one direction. Marcus and Kevin formed the front line, blocking the narrow approach. The goblins crashed into us like a wave. Marcus held his shield up, blocking crude weapons and shoving goblins back. Kevin mauled anything that got past the shield, his claws and teeth tearing through goblin flesh. Nyx darted in and out of the fight, her enhanced agility letting her strike vulnerable targets and retreat before counterattacks could land. Ronan threw fire and magical projectiles as fast as he could, but I could see his mana draining rapidly. Amara healed injuries as they appeared, golden light flashing from her hands every few seconds. I stood against the back wall, playing frantically. The music was the only thing I could contribute. I couldn't fight. I couldn't heal. All I could do was keep the buff running and hope it was enough. The goblins kept coming. Bodies piled up in the narrow passage, but more climbed over them. There were so many. My hands started shaking. Fear clawed at my chest. We were going to die here. There were too many of them and not enough of us, and I couldn't fight, and we were all going to die.
Logan!
Amara's voice cut through my panic.
I need you to keep playing. We need those buffs.
I closed my eyes and kept playing. I couldn't look at the fight anymore. I just pressed my back against the wall, squeezed my eyes shut, and forced my fingers to keep moving across the strings. The music kept flowing. The buff stayed active. Time became a blur of sound. Screaming goblins, Marcus shouting orders, Kevin's roars, the crack of Ronan's spells, Amara's desperate healing. And underneath it all, my guitar, steady and constant. My mana started running low. I stopped playing just long enough to grab a mana potion and drink it quickly, then immediately started playing again. The buff had dropped for maybe 5 seconds, but I got it back up.
I'm low on mana.
Amara shouted. I fumbled another potion from my pouch and tossed it to her. She caught it and drank it without stopping her healing. The fight dragged on. My heart was pounding. The fear kept threatening to overwhelm me, making my hands shake. I'd been playing for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 or 30 minutes. Finally, the pressure eased. The constant stream of goblins thinned, then stopped. I opened my eyes carefully. Bodies were piled 3 deep in the passage. The remaining goblins, maybe a fifth of the original swarm, were fleeing back into the ruins. Everyone was bleeding and exhausted. Marcus leaned heavily on his shield, breathing hard. Kevin had gashes all over his body. Nyx was holding her side where a goblin weapon had gotten through. Ronan had collapsed against the wall, completely spent. Amara looked ready to fall over. I stopped playing and nearly fell over myself. My hands were trembling, and my mana was almost completely drained despite the potions. "Is everyone alive?" Marcus asked weakly.
Barely.
Nyx muttered. We stayed in the defensive position for a long time, too exhausted and injured to move. Amara slowly worked through healing everyone as her mana regenerated, prioritizing the worst injuries first. A notification appeared in my vision. Then another. I'd leveled up twice. I was level 5 now. I pulled up my status with shaking hands and saw new abilities had unlocked at level 4 and level 5. Level 4 had given me 1 stat debuff minor, which could weaken an enemy's stats while I played. The level 5 ability caught my attention more. Mana regeneration minor. That would help. A lot. Nyx moved through the pile of goblin bodies with her daggers, quickly harvesting mana crystals. There were dozens of them, representing a significant amount of money.
We need to leave,
Marcus said eventually.
before those goblins come back with reinforcements.
Agreed, I said. Let's get out of here. As we started walking, I pulled out my guitar. My hands were still shaking from the terror of the fight, and I needed to do something about that. I started playing softly, focusing on the emotional control ability and targeting myself. The music flowed around me, and I felt the fear and panic slowly drain away, replaced by a calm steadiness. My breathing evened out, and my hands stopped trembling. Then I activated the new mana regeneration ability. I felt the difference immediately. My mana pool, which had been nearly depleted, started refilling noticeably faster. Normally it took about 20 minutes to fully regenerate, but with the ability active it was happening twice as fast. Even better, I could regenerate mana while actively playing and using other abilities at the same time.
What are you doing?
Amara asked, walking beside me, testing my new ability. Mana regeneration. It's helping me recover while I play. Her eyes widened.
Can you keep that running? My mana is still low and I need to heal people as we walk.
I nodded. The ability affects everyone in range, just like my other buffs. You should start regenerating mana faster too. She checked her status and smiled with relief.
You're right. This is incredible. I can actually heal everyone properly instead of rationing my mana.
We walked back toward Brookhaven slowly, and Amara worked through the group, healing injuries as her mana steadily regenerated. The combination of my doubled regeneration and her natural recovery meant she could keep everyone stable without running herself dry again. By the time we reached town, everyone was in much better shape than when we'd left the ruins. We were still exhausted and shaken, but at least we were healed and functional. When we finally reached the guild, Marcus went straight to Jess's counter.
That quest was wildly inaccurate,
He said flatly.
There weren't 20 goblins. There were over 100, maybe more.
Jess's eyes widened.
Are you serious?
Completely serious. We barely survived. You needed to send multiple parties to deal with that threat, not one group.
She made notes quickly.
I'll report this immediately. Thank you for the warning. and I'm glad you all made it back alive.
We gathered around a table to split the loot. The mana crystals alone represented a huge payout, but there were also 2 magical items recovered from the ruins: a magical sword with fire enchantments, and a ring with a small gemstone set in silver. Marcus examined the sword, and his eyes lit up.
This is perfect for me. Mind if I take it?
"It's yours," Ronan said. The rest of us agreed. Ronan picked up the ring and checked its properties.
It's a +2 mind ring. Increases your mind stat by 2 points.
He looked at Amara.
You want it?
Amara shook her head.
I already have a +3 mind amulet. You should take it.
I've got a +4 mind circlet already,
Ronan said. He turned to me.
Logan, you want this?
I took the ring and examined it. 2 extra points to mind meant more mana and better mana regeneration. For a bard who relied entirely on maintaining magical effects through music, this was incredibly valuable. "Yeah, I'll take it," I said, slipping it onto my finger. "Thank you." We split the mana crystals 5 ways. Even after division, my share was substantial. The goblin swarm had been a nightmare, but it had also been incredibly profitable. Marcus looked around at the group.
We should do this again soon. That was rough, but we worked well together.
I hesitated, then shook my head. "I don't think I can." Everyone looked at me. "I thought I was going to die in there," I said quietly. "I can't fight. I can't defend myself. All I could do was play music and hope it was enough. And it barely was." I took a breath. "I liked working with you all, but I can't keep putting myself in situations like that. It's too much." Marcus nodded slowly.
I understand. No hard feelings.
If you change your mind, we're here.
Nick said. "I appreciate that," I said, "but I think I'll stick to safer work. Herb gathering, tavern playing, that kind of thing." We said our goodbyes and I headed to the tavern. It was still early afternoon, so the place was mostly empty. Alina was wiping down tables when I walked in.
You're back early.
She said, then looked at my face more carefully.
Are you okay?
"Can I talk to you?" I asked. She set down her rag and sat at one of the tables. I joined her and told her everything. The goblin swarm, the terror, the feeling of helplessness, barely surviving. When I finished, Alina reached across the table and squeezed my hand.
You were right to stop. I left adventuring for exactly this reason. Even good teams can get wiped out. Even careful planning can go wrong. One bad quest, and you're dead.
"I feel like I'm giving up," I admitted.
You're not giving up. You're choosing to stay alive.
She smiled gently.
There's nothing wrong with playing music in a tavern and doing simple work. You don't have to risk your life to have value.
"Thank you," I said. I needed to hear that. I played that night with more feeling than I'd had in days. The music felt safe and comforting, and the tavern crowd responded well. This was what I was meant to do. Not fighting monsters, not risking death in ancient ruins. Just music. The next day I went to the market and spent a significant portion of my goblin earnings on supplies. I bought 10 mana potions and 3 healing potions, far more than I'd ever carried before. The merchant raised an eyebrow.
That's a lot of potions.
"I never want to run out again," I said. I bought the potions and distributed them between 2 pouches on my belt. I didn't trust leaving them at the inn where someone might steal them, so I kept them on me at all times. I might not be adventuring anymore, but at least I'd be prepared if something went wrong gathering herbs. The next few days passed quietly. I played at the tavern every night, practiced new songs during the day, and slowly felt my nerves settle back into something resembling normal. The terror from the goblin ruins faded into memory, and I started genuinely enjoying the idea that I could make a living just playing music. No monsters, no life or death situations, just me, my guitar, and appreciative tavern crowds. It was exactly what I wanted. Then the alarm bell rang. The sound cut through the afternoon air like a knife, loud and urgent and terrifying. I was walking through the market when it started, and I watched people freeze mid-conversation, their faces going pale. "What's happening?" I asked a nearby merchant.
The bell means the town is under attack.
He said, already packing up his stall.
Get inside and bar your doors.
People scattered in every direction. Some ran for their homes, others grabbed weapons and headed toward the walls. The organized chaos of a town preparing for battle unfolded around me. I saw someone sprinting toward the guild hall, shouting as they ran. I followed at a distance, trying to understand what was happening. The messenger burst through the guild doors, breathing hard.
"Massive monster wave approaching from the forest. Goblins, orcs, ogres, everything. If we don't get fighters to the walls now, the town is finished."
My blood went cold. The guild hall erupted into action. Adventurers grabbed weapons and armor, shouting orders to each other as they prepared. I stood frozen in the doorway, watching the organized chaos. Then I saw Alina. She came running from the direction of the tavern, her face set with determination. She'd changed out of her waitress clothes and was wearing leather armor I'd never seen before. She had her bow slung over her shoulder and 2 quivers of arrows strapped to her back. She saw me and stopped.
Logan, get inside somewhere safe. This is going to be bad.
"Where are you going?"
I'm going to the city wall. Anywhere I can shoot from.
She adjusted her quivers.
If the town falls, I lose everything. I have to help.
She ran past me before I could respond, heading toward the wall. Kevin nudged my leg with his massive head. I looked down at him. "What do you think we should do, Kevin?" Kevin tilted his head and made a low huffing sound, then gestured with his snout toward where Alina had gone. "Remember what happened last time?" I said. "In the goblin ruins, we almost died. You got hurt badly, and this will be far worse." Kevin shook his head slowly and deliberately, then walked a few steps toward the wall and looked back at me expectantly. "You want to help," I said flatly. He huffed again, more insistently. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Alina was up there. The young adventuring party was probably out there fighting, and I was standing here, arguing with a bear about whether to hide or help. "All right, I get it," I said, opening my eyes. "But I'm going to head to the wall where I can project my music better. You'll have to be down below to help, so be safe out there." I steadied my guitar case against my back and started running toward the wall. Kevin loped alongside me, easily keeping pace. By the time we reached the base of the wall, I could hear the sounds of battle from outside the gates. Screaming, the clash of weapons, magical explosions. The defense had already begun. I climbed the stairs to the top of the wall and found organized chaos. Archers lined the ramparts, firing down at targets below. Guards shouted orders, coordinating the defense. And in one of the tower positions, I saw Alina. She was firing arrows with mechanical precision, one shot after another without pause. Her face was focused and calm, completely different from the friendly waitress I knew from the tavern. This was the ranger she used to be, the one who'd left adventuring because of fear. She wasn't showing any fear now. I moved to a position near her and looked over the wall at the battlefield below. My stomach dropped. The adventurers had formed a defensive line outside the town gates. Warriors with shields held the front, blocking and absorbing hits from the monster horde. Behind them, spellcasters threw fire and ice into the mass of enemies, trying to thin the numbers. Healers worked frantically in the back, pulling injured fighters out of the line and getting them patched up enough to return. The monster wave was massive. Goblins swarmed in clusters, orcs swung crude weapons with brutal strength, and hulking ogres lumbered forward like walking siege engines. The sheer number of enemies made my vision blur just trying to count them. The defense was holding, but barely. For every monster that fell, 2 more seemed to take its place. Kevin didn't wait for instructions. He charged through the gates and slammed into the monster line like a living battering ram. His claws ripped through goblins, sending bodies flying. An orc turned to face him, and Kevin crushed its skull with a single swipe. He became a whirlwind of fur and violence, carving a path through the horde and taking pressure off the human fighters. I pulled out my guitar and looked at the small volume dial on the inside of the hole. The goddess had built a magical amplifier into the instrument, so I wouldn't need external equipment. I'd never used it at full power before, but if there was ever a time to test it, this was it. I turned the amp all the way up. The sound that came from my guitar when I started playing was massive. It projected across the entire battlefield, clear and powerful, reaching every fighter below. The goddess had been smart about the design. The amplification focused outward, so it wouldn't deafen me while I played. I channeled mana into multiple effects at once. The agility buff spread across our defenders, making them faster and more responsive. Then, I added the agility debuff, targeting the monsters and making them sluggish and clumsy. The mana regeneration buff followed, doubling the recovery rate for every spellcaster and healer in range. Finally, I activated the emotional control ability and flooded the battlefield with courage. Fear drained away from the defenders, replaced by steady determination. I held it for about 30 seconds, then shut it off to conserve mana. The boost had done its job. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Our fighters moved with new confidence, dodging attacks that would have hit them before. The monsters stumbled and struggled to connect with their weapons. Spellcasters unleashed more frequent attacks as their mana pools recovered faster. Healers worked without the constant threat of running dry. The defense line stabilized. Then the notifications started appearing. Level 6 achieved. I kept playing, maintaining all the buffs simultaneously. My mana was draining fast, but the potions on my belt would handle that. Level 7 achieved. What was going on? How did I gain experience that fast? Then it hit me. I was gaining experience from every kill made by fighters under my buffs. Dozens of people were fighting below me, all enhanced by my music, and the system was crediting me with supporting every single one of their victories. They were definitely going to nerf bards in the next patch. I needed to check my new abilities as I played, hoping for something useful. My first new ability was Dodge skill, which was completely useless for me on the wall. I ignored it and focused on the next ability. At level 7, I'd gained the ability to buff 2 stats at once, and for only a little bit more mana. I activated it immediately and increased the Mind stat, targeting our spellcasters and healers. Their mana pools expanded, compounding with the regeneration buff to create a surge of magical power. It was also helping my mana pool as well. The spellcasters responded with a barrage of area effect attacks. Fire and ice tore through monster clusters. The pressure on the front line eased even more. My mana hit the 5% mark and kept dropping. I was running multiple buffs at once and the drain was intense. "Alina!" I called out. "I need a mana potion." She stopped shooting for a moment and moved to my side. I couldn't stop playing without dropping all the buffs, so I kept both hands on the guitar. "My belt pouches," I said quickly. "Blue potions." She reached into my pouch, pulled out a mana potion, and without hesitation poured it directly into my mouth while I continued playing. I swallowed quickly and nodded thanks. My mana refilled, and I kept going. The battle raged on. Kevin tore through monsters below, a force of nature that refused to stop. The adventurers held their line with enhanced speed, and the spellcasters rained destruction. And I played, directing the flow of magic across the battlefield. I could only do a 20% buff on our side and 20% debuff on theirs, but it was enough to turn the tide. Level 8 achieved. I checked the new ability quickly, dual stat debuff. I could now weaken 2 enemy stats simultaneously. Perfect. I immediately added a strength debuff to the monsters, layering it on top of the agility debuff I was already running. The monsters became both slower and weaker, their attacks losing power even when they managed to land. My mana dropped fast. The multiple buffs and debuffs were burning through my reserves at an alarming rate. I could maintain this for maybe 20 minutes before I'd need another potion. Alina appeared at my side without being asked, and poured another mana potion into my mouth. I swallowed and nodded thanks, never stopping the music. The battle started trending toward victory. The defenders were holding. The monsters were dying faster than they could advance, and our casualties had been minimal considering the size of the wave. Then the ground shook. I looked toward the forest, and my blood went cold. A giant emerged from the tree line, easily 40 feet tall. It carried a massive club that looked like an entire tree trunk. The creature trampled through lesser monsters without caring, crushing goblins and orcs underfoot as it marched toward the town. The defensive line looked suddenly very small.
Everyone brace!
Someone shouted from below. The giant reached the front line and swung its club in a wide arc. Fighters scattered, barely avoiding being crushed. Those who tried to block the swing were shoved backward, their shields crumpling under the force. Kevin charged the giant's leg and bit down hard, his incredible strength allowing him to clamp on with tremendous pressure. But even then, he wasn't doing enough damage to bring it down. I made a split-second decision and changed my buff configuration. I kept the agility buff running so people could dodge the giant's devastating swings, but I swapped the mind buff for strength, flooding our fighters with physical power. The effect was immediate. Kevin's jaws crushed down harder on the giant's leg, tearing through muscle and sinew. The giant roared and stumbled, dropping to one knee. Other adventurers surged forward with weapons that suddenly hit like hammers. Swords that had bounced off the giant's thick skin now cut deep. Axes that had barely scratched it now bit into flesh. The giant tried to stand, but Kevin dragged it down again, enhanced strength giving him leverage he'd never normally have. Warriors hacked at the exposed leg until the giant toppled completely, crashing to the ground with an impact that shook the wall. They swarmed it and finished the job. Level 9 achieved. I checked the new ability, Health Regeneration buff. It would provide slow, steady HP recovery to everyone in range. That could be incredibly useful. I tried to activate it alongside my other buffs. The system rejected it immediately. I couldn't run health regeneration and mana regeneration at the same time. I had to choose one or the other. I kept mana regeneration active. The healers and spellcasters needed it more right now to keep the defense functional. My mana dropped to 5% again. Alina was there immediately with another potion, keeping me functional. With the giant dead, I switched back to my previous configuration. Mind buff for the casters and healers, agility for everyone. The battle returned to its long grind. The fight dragged on for what felt like hours. Several adventurers fell and didn't get back up. Most of the survivors were injured at some point. The healers worked themselves to exhaustion, trying to keep everyone functional. Alina fed me 3 more mana potions over the course of the battle, timing them perfectly to keep my buffs running without interruption. Finally, the monster horde broke. The creatures that remained alive turned and fled back toward the forest. Our defenders chased briefly, cutting down stragglers, but wisely didn't pursue deep into the trees. The battle was over. I stopped playing and nearly collapsed from exhaustion. My fingers ached, my back hurt from standing for so long, and my head pounded from the sustained mana expenditure. I switched to a different song, one that provided slow health regeneration to everyone within range. The healers were nearly spent, and we needed every bit of recovery we could get. The gentle melody spread across the wall and down to the defenders below, providing steady healing without requiring anyone's active attention. After a few minutes, I finally stopped completely and slung my guitar onto my back. "Thank God that's over," I said, turning to Alina. She rushed me, throwing her arms around my neck and kissing me hard on the mouth. I froze in shock. We'd been friendly, maybe flirtatious, but I hadn't thought our relationship had progressed to this point. She pulled back, her eyes bright.
You were incredible. Your music changed everything. We would have died without you.
I was still processing the kiss, my brain struggling to catch up with what had just happened. Thank you, I managed. She laughed and kissed me again, softer this time.
Come on, let's go down and see everyone.
We climbed down from the wall into a town that had erupted in celebration. People filled the streets, cheering and congratulating each other. The relief was palpable. We'd survived something that could have destroyed Brookhaven completely. People recognized me as we walked. Adventurers I'd never met called out thanks. Civilians I'd only seen in passing at the tavern stopped me to shake my hand. I wasn't just the background musician anymore. They were treating me like a real hero. Kevin walked beside me with his head held high, soaking in the attention and praise. We made our way back to the tavern with a growing crowd of adventurers following us. Tobin saw us coming and immediately started breaking out the good alcohol.
"Drinks are free tonight,"
he announced.
"We're celebrating being alive."
The tavern filled quickly. Some adventurers stayed for hours. Others came briefly before heading home to families. The atmosphere was electric with relief and joy. I sat at a table with Alina and Kevin, and for the first time in my life, in this world, people pulled me into their conversations. They wanted to hear about the battle from my perspective, wanted to know how the buffs worked, wanted to understand what it was like playing music while a giant tried to smash the walls.
I leveled to 6.
Alina said, grinning.
From all the shooting. I haven't gained that much experience in years.
I hit level 10, I said. Marcus whistled low.
10? You were level 5 when we went to those ruins. You gained 5 levels in one battle?
I was buffing most of the defenders. Every kill they made while under my effects gave me experience. Dozens of people fighting at once, all enhanced by my music. I shrugged. The system credited me with supporting all of them.
That's insane,
Nyx said, shaking her head.
Support classes really do scale differently in mass combat.
Bards are going to get nerfed, I joked, but no one seemed to understand the reference. The night wore on. I drank more than I should have, both alcohol and the lingering taste of mana potions still in my mouth. Eventually, I said my goodbyes and stumbled down the road to the inn, collapsing into bed. I woke late the next day feeling absolutely terrible. My stomach hurt from drinking too many mana potions during the battle, and the alcohol from the celebration wasn't helping. I groaned and forced myself out of bed, then walked down the road to the tavern. I found Alina setting up for the evening shift. She looked up when I entered and smiled.
You look awful,
she said. I feel awful. Too many mana potions. She laughed and came over, sitting beside me at one of the tables.
We should probably talk about yesterday.
The kiss? I asked.
The kiss.
She nodded.
I waited for you to kiss me first, you know. But you were taking too long, so I just went for it.
I smiled and replied, It surprised me at first, but I'm really glad you did. So, does this mean we're officially dating? She tilted her head.
What is dating?
Right. Different world, different terminology. Is courting the right word? Can I court you? Be with you? Her face lit up with understanding and joy.
Yes, absolutely yes.
She leaned in and kissed me again, and this time I was ready for it. When she pulled back, she was grinning.
Good,
she said.
Now let me grab you something to eat. You look like you're about to be sick.
I probably am, I admitted, and she laughed. The young adventuring party arrived at the tavern a few hours later. Marcus, Nyx, Ronan, and Amara all looked like they'd slept as badly as I had. They dropped into chairs around my table, and we spent a while talking through the battle, the terror of the giant, the relief when the horde finally broke.
We were nearly wiped out twice, Marcus said. We need to level faster. If something like this happens again and we're still at the same level, we're dead.
Everyone looked rough. The celebration had been worth it, but we were all paying for it now. I pulled out my guitar and started playing a soft, quiet melody, channeling the health regeneration buff. The gentle music spread across the table, and I watched the effect work in real time. Color came back into people's faces. The tension around their eyes eased. Ronan stopped rubbing his temples. Nyx sat up straighter.
What did you just do?
Marcus asked, sounding genuinely surprised. Health regeneration song. I unlocked it during the battle.
You just cured my hangover.
Amara said, staring at me.
With music.
Mostly. Give it another minute. I kept playing softly while everyone slowly recovered. By the time I finished, the table looked like a completely different group of people. Marcus leaned forward.
Do you understand how valuable that is? Not just in combat. A bard who can keep a party healthy and functional between fights means we can push harder and recover faster than any other group.
I thought about it. Everything in me still wanted to avoid danger and just play music. But Marcus wasn't wrong. The monster wave had come to Brookhaven whether I wanted it to or not. Being stronger wasn't thrill-seeking. It was survival. All right, I said. I'll join you again. But we picked quests carefully. No more walking into ruins with 100 goblins.
Agreed,
Marcus said immediately.
If Logan is joining,
Alina said from behind the bar.
then I'm joining too.
Everyone turned to look at her. She set down the cups she was drying and walked over.
I leveled to 6 in that last battle shooting from the wall. I'm a ranger, and I used to adventure a while ago. Also, Logan and I are a couple now, and I think I'm ready to get back out there again if I'm with him.
Marcus looked around at the group.
We could use an archer. We would love to have you.
Then it's settled,
She said happily. We headed to the guild hall together that afternoon to register officially as a party. The moment we walked through the doors, the reaction was immediate. Adventurers looked up, recognized me, and started cheering. Someone started clapping and it spread across the room. People called out Logan's name and something about the music that had saved them all. I stood there, feeling deeply uncomfortable and grateful at the same time. Jessa was smiling behind the counter when we reached her.
The hero of Brookhaven,
She said.
I'm glad you're here. I have something for you.
She registered us as an official party first, noting down all 6 names, including Kevin, as an animal companion. Then she slid a substantial pouch across the counter.
After the battle, the surviving adventurers pooled contributions based on impact,
She said.
Your music kept most of them alive. They voted on it. You also get a share from the sale of the mana crystals harvested from the monster wave. There were a lot of them.
I picked up the pouch and nearly dropped it. It was heavy with gold. This is significant, I said.
You've earned it.
Jessa said.
You can stop worrying about 2 silver a night for a while.
I tucked the pouch away, feeling something shift. For the first time since arriving in this world, I wasn't scraping by. I could buy better equipment, keep a full supply of potions, maybe even save for the future. Jessa's expression shifted, becoming more serious.
There's something else you might be interested to know. Our scouts gathered intelligence after the battle. The monster wave wasn't natural.
The room had quieted around us.
Evidence points to dark magic.
She continued.
A powerful evil mage cast a large-scale lure spell that pulled the monster wave toward Brookhaven. The scale of it required significant magical ability.
Someone deliberately sent that at us?
Marcus said.
That's what the evidence suggests. The guild will be sending parties out to track the mage down.
She paused.
The good news is that the immediate threat is reduced. The mage is now on the run, and the monster populations in the surrounding area have been heavily thinned. You're unlikely to see anything like this again soon.
I absorbed that quietly. The town was safe for now, but who knew how long that would last? Somewhere out in the world, someone had deliberately tried to destroy Brookhaven. A tavern life, as much as I loved it, couldn't fully hide from a world like this one. I'd tried that approach and nearly got killed anyway. I made the right decision to start getting stronger. Kevin nudged my hand with his nose. I scratched behind his ear absently, thinking about what came next. All right, I said to the party. Let's find some quests.